Thank you for saving her. She is my grandmother.
You're welcome.
The hum of 1,000 engines forms a chaotic symphony. The air is thick with exhaust fumes and the oppressive heat of the rising sun. Inside a crowded public bus, passengers fan themselves with anything they can find, muttering about the hopeless traffic. But in the corner, squeezed into a tiny space, sits Amara Okon. And unlike everyone else, her face is not twisted in anger. It is a mask of pure terror. She is dressed impeccably in a crisp navy blue blazer and a pristine white blouse. Her hair is neatly braided, her makeup perfect. She clutches a leather folder to her chest like a shield, holding her university degree. After 3 years of rejection, she finally has an interview at her dream job. She is supposed to be at Global Dynamics Industries by 8 a.m. sharp. Her eyes dart from her wristwatch to the unmoving sea of vehicles. The time shows 7:45 a.m. 15 minutes. The seconds tick by like hammer blows to her chest. Please, God, she whispers in her mind. Not today. After 3 years of nothing. After watching Mama's cough get worse, because we cannot afford a doctor. After she pretends to be full so I can eat. Please, do not let it end today. Not in this traffic. She sticks her head out the window. The line of cars is endless. She flags down a young hawker weaving through the vehicles. Please, what is happening? The girl leans in. Bad accident at the next junction. An old woman. She just wandered into the road. Nobody can pass. The woman is lying on the ground, but everybody is afraid to touch her. They are waiting for police. Amara's heart sinks. An accident. It could be hours. She looks at her watch. 7:50 a.m. 10 minutes. Her dream job. The one that would pay for Mama's treatment. The one that would save them from hunger. A selfish thought pierces her panic. If they would just move the woman out of the way. She slams the thought down, ashamed. She looks ahead through the heat haze. In the distance, she sees a crowd standing in a wide circle, leaving a solitary figure alone on the hot asphalt. Something in Amara breaks. That lone figure, small, vulnerable, alone. It reminds her of her mother. It could be her mother. Without thinking, she shoves her folder into her bag, pushes open the bus door, and steps into the chaos. She starts walking, then jogging, weaving between cars. She reaches the front. On the ground lies an old woman, elegantly dressed in fine lace, now torn and bloody. Her silver hair is matted with blood. Her eyes are open, confused, lost. Do not touch her, a man shouts. You will carry a curse. Let us wait for ambulance, another yells. A man holds up his phone. I am recording. She wants to be a hero. Amara kneels in the dirt beside the woman, heedless of her clean clothes. The old woman flinches. Adana? She whispers, frail and confused. Is that you? I am lost. I was looking for the bread. Amara's heart clenches. This is someone's grandmother, someone's mother. Lost, scared, in pain. The crowd, the traffic, her job, it all fades away. It is okay, Mama, Amara says softly, taking her hand. My name is Amara. I am here. I'm going to help you. She looks around. No ambulance. No time. The hospital is a 15-minute walk through a market shortcut. She makes a decision that will change her life forever. Ignoring the gasps and warnings, she lifts the old woman onto her back. The weight is shocking, but she steadies herself. You are strong, Adana. The woman mumbles. Just like your mother. With the old woman on her back, Amara ducks into a narrow, muddy alley. She carries her precious cargo through the chaos of the market, past traders shouting, past goats and stray dogs. Sweat pours down her face, staining her beautiful blazer. Her arms burn. Her legs scream. But she does not stop. She talks to the woman the whole way. We are almost there, Mama. You are doing so well. Just hold on. She does not know it yet, but this woman she carries on her back will change everything. The job she is about to lose will be replaced by something she never imagined. And the blessing she is sowing today, she will reap in ways that will make her faint. What happens next? Will Amara make it to her interview? Will she lose her dream job for helping a stranger? And who is this old woman she is carrying? You are about to witness one of the most emotional stories of sacrifice, divine connection, and unexpected love. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you do not miss the rest of this incredible story. And if this touches your heart, drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever helped a stranger even when it cost you something? We want to hear your stories. Let us continue. Her mother was sitting on the mattress, propped against the wall. She had been waiting, her eyes fixed on the door, her hands clasped in her lap. When Amara burst in, her face wet with tears but stretched in the widest smile she had ever worn, Madame Gloria's eyes went wide with alarm. "Amara!" she cried, struggling to sit up straighter. "What happened? Why are you crying? Are you hurt? Did something go wrong?" Amara crossed the room in 2 steps and fell to her knees beside the mattress. She grabbed her mother's hands, those thin, worn hands that had worked so hard, sacrificed so much. She held them tight, her tears falling on them, and she looked into her mother's worried eyes. "Mama," she said, her voice trembling with joy. "Mama, I got it. I got the job." Madame Gloria stared at her. For one long, suspended moment, she did not move. Her face was frozen, caught between fear and hope, not daring to believe what she had just heard. "What did you say?" she whispered. "I got the job, Mama." Amara's voice grew stronger, the words pouring out like a river finally released. "They hired me. After 3 interviews, after all the questions, after all the waiting, they said yes. I start on Monday. I have a job, Mama. We have hope." Madame Gloria's face crumpled. A sound escaped her, a cry that was part sob and part laugh, a sound that held 3 years of watching her daughter struggle. 3 years of pretending to be full. 3 years of silent prayers and hidden tears. She reached out and pulled Amara into her arms, holding her with a strength that seemed impossible for such a frail body. They held each other, mother and daughter, on that thin mattress in that tiny room, and they cried. They cried for the long years of hunger and rejection. They cried for the nights Amara had come home with empty hands and a broken spirit. They cried for the times Madame Gloria had watched her daughter suffer and could do nothing but pray. They cried for all of it, all the pain and struggle and fear, and they let it wash away in tears of pure, overwhelming relief. "My daughter," Madame Gloria whispered into Amara's hair. "My daughter, God has done it. He has answered our prayers." "Yes, Mama," Amara sobbed, holding her mother tighter. "He answered. He finally answered." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, crying and laughing and crying some more. The world outside continued its chaos, the noise of the city filtering through the thin walls. But inside that small room, there was only joy. Pure, unfiltered, explosive joy. Finally, Madame Gloria pulled back and looked at her daughter's face. She cupped Amara's cheeks in her hands, wiping away the tears with her thumbs. "Tell me everything," she said. "I want to hear every detail. From the moment you walked in to the moment they said yes." And Amara told her. She told her about the beautiful lobby with the marble floors and the chandelier. She told her about Mrs. Williams and the tough questions. She told her about the panel of 3 and the hypothetical problem they gave her. She told her about the long wait, the hour of sitting and wondering if she had failed. And finally, she told her about Mr. Tund, the cold man with the serious face who had stared at her for what felt like forever before standing and offering his hand. When he said, "Welcome to Global Dynamics Industries, Mama," I almost fainted. I could not believe it. I still cannot believe it. Madame Gloria laughed, a joyful sound that was immediately interrupted by a cough. The cough was deep and painful, racking her thin frame, and it went on for nearly a minute. Amara's joy flickered, shadowed by worry. She held her mother's hand, waiting for the coughing to stop. When it finally did, Madame Gloria was left breathless, her hand pressed to her chest. But she was still smiling. "Mama," Amara said, her voice soft but firm, "now we can get you proper treatment. A real doctor. The best hospital. No more small medicine from the corner chemist. I will take care of you. That is the first thing my salary will do." Madame Gloria shook her head. "No, my daughter. The first thing your salary will do is buy you better clothes for your new job. And good food to keep you strong. I have waited this long. I can wait a little longer." "No, Mama." Amara's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "You have waited long enough. You have sacrificed enough. Now it is my turn to take care of you. That is not negotiable." Madame Gloria looked at her daughter, at the determination burning in her eyes, and she felt her heart swell with pride. This was the girl she had raised. This was the woman she had prayed into existence. Strong, compassionate, unwavering. "All right, my daughter," she said softly. "We will do it your way." Amara smiled and leaned forward to kiss her mother's forehead. "Now, let us pray. Let us thank God for this miracle." Madame Gloria nodded. She took Amara's hands in hers, and they bowed their heads together. "Father God," Madame Gloria began, her voice weak but growing stronger with each word, "we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude. You have done it again. You have shown yourself faithful. When the world said no, you said yes. When hope was fading, you reignited it. When we were at our lowest, you lifted us up." Her voice grew stronger, filled with the power of a mother's love and a believer's faith. Madame Gloria was already awake. She had been watching her daughter move around the room, her heart full to bursting with a love so deep it felt like it might overflow. She watched Amara prepare the tea, watched the care in every movement, and she thought about the baby she had held in her arms 27 years ago. The child the doctors had said might not survive. And here she was now, a woman, about to step into her destiny. "Mama," Amara whispered, touching her mother's shoulder gently. "I brought you tea." Madame Gloria smiled and slowly sat up, leaning against the wall. Amara placed the cup in her hands, and their fingers touched, a brief connection that said more than words ever could. "Thank you, my daughter," Madame Gloria said, her voice soft with sleep and emotion. "You did not have to do this. I wanted to, Mama. Today is a special day. You should be treated like a queen." Madame Gloria laughed softly, then took a sip of the tea. "I have to go now, Mama. I cannot be late on my first day." Madame Gloria nodded, wiping her own tears. "Go, my daughter. Go and conquer." Amara picked up her purse and her leather folder. She walked to the door and paused, looking back one more time. Her mother was still watching her, that same loving gaze, that same pride shining in her eyes. Amara smiled, opened the door and stepped out. The corridor was dark and quiet. She walked through it, down the stairs, and out into the street. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The first rays of light fell on her face, warm and promising. She stood there for a moment, breathing in the morning air, feeling the weight of the moment. Then she began to walk toward the bus stop, toward her new life. carrying with her the most powerful weapon she would ever have. A mother's blessing. The bus crawled forward a few feet, then stopped. Crawled forward again, then stopped. Amara checked her watch. 7:20 a.m. Still plenty of time. The company was only 20 minutes away once they cleared this traffic. She settled back in her seat, letting herself enjoy the morning. The feeling of her new blazer. The weight of her folder on her lap. Today was the day. Nothing could ruin it. But then the bus stopped moving altogether. And it did not start again. At first, Amara was calm. Traffic was normal in the city. These things happened. She looked out the window at the sea of vehicles stretching ahead. A long line of cars, buses, motorcycles, all trapped together in this metal prison. Someone honked, then someone else. Soon, the air was filled with the angry sound of horns, drivers expressing their frustration in the universal language of impatience. 5 minutes passed. The bus did not move. 10 minutes. Still nothing. Amara checked her watch again. 7:30 a.m. She had 30 minutes. Surely they would start moving soon. 15 minutes. The horns were louder now, more desperate. People were leaning out of windows, shouting. A man got out of his car and walked ahead to see what was happening. He came back shaking his head. 20 minutes. Amara's heart began to beat faster. She checked her watch. 7:45 a.m. 15 minutes until she was supposed to be at Global Dynamics Industries. And they had not moved an inch. Panic began to rise in her chest. A cold, suffocating feeling that started in her stomach and spread upward. This could not be happening. Not today. Not after everything. Not when she was so close. She wound down the window and stuck her head out, trying to see ahead. But there were too many vehicles, too many people. All she could see was the endless line of cars and, in the distance, what looked like a crowd gathered on the roadside. A young man was walking past, weaving between the stalled vehicles. Amara called out to him. "Please, sir, do you know what is happening? Why is the traffic not moving?" The man stopped and leaned toward her window. His face was tired, annoyed, the face of someone who had been stuck here too long. "There is an accident at the next junction," he said. "An old woman. They say she just wandered into the road and a vehicle hit her. She is lying there right in the middle. The police have not come yet. Nobody can pass because everybody is afraid to move her. So we are all just waiting." Amara's heart sank into her stomach. An accident. An old woman lying in the road. It could be hours before the police came, before an ambulance arrived, before the road was cleared. Hours. Has no one helped her? She asked, her voice small. The man shook his head. "Help her? Sister, nobody wants to touch her. You know how these things go. If you touch her and she dies on you, the family will say you killed her, or you will carry bad luck. So everybody is just watching. Let the government people handle it." He walked away, leaving Amara staring at the crowd in the distance. She could see them now, a large circle of people standing at a distance, all looking inward at something on the ground. They were watching. They were recording with their phones, but no one was helping. Amara looked at her watch again. 7:48 a.m., 12 minutes. She was going to be late. She was going to lose this job before she even started. Inside her, a war began. Two voices, equally loud, equally convincing, fighting for control of her heart. The first voice was loud, urgent, desperate. It was the voice of self-preservation, of survival, of everything she had fought for. "Do not move," it said. "This is your first day. Do you understand what that means? After 3 years of nothing, you finally have a chance. A real chance. A job that can change everything for you and your mother. The treatment she needs. the food you have gone without, the life you have dreamed of. It is all right there, waiting for you. If you get out of this bus, if you get involved, you will lose it all. Is that woman worth your mother's life? Is she worth your future? Do not be foolish. Stay in this bus. Pray that they clear the road quickly. But do not move. The second voice was softer, quieter, but somehow just as powerful. It was the voice of her mother, of her childhood, of everything she had been raised to believe. That woman is someone's mother, it said. She is lying on the hot road, bleeding, confused, alone. Just like your mother would be if something happened to her. Think about it. If Mama was lying there, if she was hurt and scared, and no one would help her because they were afraid of bad luck, what would you want? You would want someone to step forward. You would want someone to be brave. You would want someone to see her not as a stranger, but as a human being. Amara's hands gripped her folder tighter. The voices continued. If you get out there, you will be late. You will lose the job. You know these companies. They do not care about excuses. They will not listen to your story. They will just see that you failed to show up on time. And then what? 3 more years of struggle? Your mother's sickness getting worse. Is that what you want? But the other voice would not be silenced. Your mother's blessing, it whispered. Remember what she said this morning. She said, let your goodness always guide you. Not your fear. Not your desperation. Your goodness. She raised you to be better than this. She raised you to have a heart. If you ignore that woman, if you sit here and do nothing while she suffers, what kind of person are you? What kind of daughter of your mother are you? Amara closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face. The way she had looked at her this morning, the pride in her eyes. She heard her voice, weak but powerful, saying those words. Let your goodness always guide you. She opened her eyes and looked ahead at the crowd. At the people standing in a circle, watching, recording, doing nothing. At the invisible figure on the ground, alone and suffering. And then, before she could talk herself out of it, before fear could tighten its grip again, her body moved. She grabbed her bag, shoved her folder inside, and pushed open the bus door. The conductor, who had been leaning against the side of the vehicle, jumped in surprise. Hey, where are you going? We are not there yet. I will come back, Amara said, her voice firm despite the shaking in her hands. She stepped out into the traffic and started walking toward the crowd. Behind her, she heard the conductor shout something else. But she did not turn around. She walked between the stalled cars, past drivers who stared at her curiously, past passengers who watched from their windows. She walked with purpose, with determination, with a heart that was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She did not know what she would find. She did not know if she could help. She did not know if she would make it to her job at all. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She could not sit in that bus and do nothing. Not while someone's mother was lying alone on the road. Not while her own mother's blessing was still fresh on her head. She walked toward the crowd, toward the unknown, toward a choice that would change her life forever. And in her heart she prayed, God, if this costs me everything, please let it be worth it. Please let her be okay. And please, please help me find a way. The crowd parted for Amara as she approached, but not because they wanted to let her through. They stepped back because they could not believe what they were seeing. A young woman, dressed in a crisp navy blue blazer and pristine white blouse, her hair neatly braided, her shoes polished, walking toward the injured old woman like she belonged there, like she had every right to be there. The crowd stared, whispered, pointed, but no one tried to stop her. They were too shocked to move. Amara's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. A relentless drumbeat that drowned out the noise of the traffic. the whispers of the crowd, the distant blare of horns. Her mouth was dry. Her hands were trembling, but her feet kept moving, one step after another, carrying her toward the figure on the ground. As she got closer, she could see the old woman more clearly. She was small, frail, her body crumpled on the hot asphalt like a discarded piece of cloth. But the cloth was not ordinary. Even torn and dirty, the woman's clothes spoke of wealth, of quality. She wore a fine lace boo-boo, the kind that cost more than Amara's rent for a year, now ripped at the shoulder and stained with blood. Her silver hair, normally elegant, was matted and tangled, a dark red patch spreading from a wound on her scalp. Her eyes were open, blinking slowly, but they did not seem to see anything. They stared at the sky, at the crowd, at nothing, with the confused gaze of someone who was not fully present in this world. Around her, the crowd stood in a wide circle, a ring of curious, fearful faces. No one stepped forward. No one knelt. They just watched. A man near the front saw Amara approaching, and his eyes widened. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Young woman," he shouted, his voice a mix of warning and disbelief. "Do not touch her. Do you hear me? Do not touch that woman." Amara tried to step around him, but he moved with her. "You will carry bad luck," he continued, his voice rising. "If she dies while you are touching her, her family will say you killed her. They will make you pay. Is that what you want? Stay back. Let the police handle it." Behind him, a young boy, no more than 15, held his phone high, recording everything. His face was lit with excitement, the kind of excitement that comes from witnessing something unusual, something worth posting online. "Look at this woman," he shouted to his phone, to his followers, to the world. "She thinks she is a hero. She is going to touch the dead body. Wait until you see what happens. I am recording everything." Amara looked at the boy, at his phone, at the man blocking her path. She looked at the crowd, at all the faces watching her, waiting to see what she would do. And then she looked past them, at the old woman lying on the ground, alone and afraid. Something shifted inside her. The fear was still there, pounding in her chest, screaming in her ears. But beneath it, something else rose up, something stronger, something that would not be silenced. She looked the man in the eyes. "That woman is someone's mother," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "If she was your mother, would you want someone to stand here and watch? Or would you want them to help?" The man's mouth opened, but no words came out. He stared at her, caught off guard by the question. Amara stepped around him and walked toward the old woman. Behind her, she heard the crowd murmur, heard the boy's excited commentary, heard someone shout, "She is brave or foolish. We will see." But she did not look back. She kept walking until she reached the old woman, and then she knelt down in the dirt beside her. The asphalt was hot, so hot she could feel the heat through her skirt. The smell of exhaust fumes and dust filled her nose, but she barely noticed. All her attention was on the woman before her. Up close, the injuries were worse than they had seemed from a distance. The wound on the woman's head was still bleeding, a slow trickle of blood running down her temple and into her silver hair. Her hands, fine and delicate, with rings on several fingers, were scraped and dirty. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, and her eyes, those confused, frightened eyes, darted back and forth, searching for something, someone that was not there. The old woman flinched when Amara knelt beside her, a small, fearful movement that broke Amara's heart. She lifted a trembling hand, as if to ward off a blow. "It's okay," Amara whispered, her voice soft, gentle, the voice she used when her mother was having a bad night, when the cough was especially painful. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. The old woman's eyes focused on Amara's face, but they did not seem to see her clearly. They looked through her, past her, at someone else, somewhere else. Adana? The woman whispered, her voice weak, trembling, like a leaf in the wind. Adana, is that you? Amara's breath caught. Adana. The woman was calling her by another name. She was seeing someone else, someone from her past, someone she loved. I have been looking for you, the old woman continued, her voice rising and falling in confusion. I could not find the bread from when I was young. Do you remember it, Adana? It was so soft, so sweet. I wanted to find it, but I got lost. I am so lost. Tears pricked at Amara's eyes. This woman was not just injured. She was lost. Lost in her mind, lost in memories, lost in a world that no longer existed. She had dementia. She had wandered away from someone, and ended up here, on this hot road, hit by a car, surrounded by strangers who would not help. Amara reached out slowly, carefully, and took the woman's trembling hand. The skin was papery thin, the bones fragile beneath it. She held it gently, as if it were made of glass. It is okay, Mama, Amara said, her voice thick with emotion. It is okay. My name is Amara. I am here now. I am going to help you. The old woman's eyes flickered, confusion still clouding them, but something else too. Relief. The relief of someone who had been alone, and was no longer alone. Adana, she whispered again, a smile flickering at the corner of her lips. You came. I knew you would come. You always come. Amara did not correct her. If being Adana gave this woman comfort, then she would be Adana. For now, that was all that mattered. She looked around, scanning the crowd, the road, the stalled vehicles. No ambulance, no police, no sign of anyone coming to help. The crowd was still watching, still recording, still waiting to see what would happen. But no one was doing anything. Amara's mind raced. The hospital. Where was the nearest hospital? She knew this area. She had grown up in this city, had walked these streets countless times. The general hospital was not far. Maybe 15 minutes if you took the shortcut through the market. But could she carry this woman that far? The woman was frail, but she was still a weight. And Amara was not strong. She had never been strong. But there was no other choice. No one else was going to help. If she waited for an ambulance, the woman could die. If she waited for the police, the woman could die. The only person who could save her was kneeling right beside her. Amara looked at the old woman's face, at the confusion and fear and hope mingled there. She thought of her own mother, lying on that thin mattress, waiting for her daughter to come home with good news. She thought of her mother's blessing, the words still echoing in her heart. Let your goodness always guide you. And she made her decision. Okay, Mama, she said softly, squeezing the woman's hand. We are going to get you help. But you have to help me, okay? I'm going to lift you. It might hurt a little, but I will be careful. I promise. The old woman looked at her, and for a moment something like clarity flickered in her eyes. She nodded, a small, barely perceptible movement. Amara released her hand and moved behind her. She slid her arms under the woman's shoulders, careful to avoid the wound on her head. She could feel the crowd's eyes on her, could hear the murmurs growing louder, could sense the excitement in the air. But she blocked it all out. There was only her and this woman. Only this moment. On the count of 3, she whispered. 1, 2, 3. She lifted. The woman was heavier than she expected, her body a dead weight that strained every muscle in Amara's arms and back. But she managed to get her into a sitting position, the woman's head lolling against her shoulder. You are strong, Adana, the old woman mumbled, her voice barely audible. Just like your mother. Just like my Adana. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. There was no time for tears. She shifted her position, adjusted her grip, and then, with a strength she did not know she possessed, she hoisted the old woman onto her back. The crowd gasped. She heard it, a collective intake of breath from dozens of people. She heard the boy with the phone shout, "She is doing it! She is actually carrying her!" She heard the man who had tried to stop her mutter, "This girl is either blessed or cursed. We will see." But Amara heard it all from a distance, as if through water. Her entire being was focused on one thing, standing up. The weight on her back was immense, crushing, threatening to push her back to the ground. Her legs shook. Her arms screamed in protest. Sweat immediately broke out on her forehead. But she did not fall. She straightened, slowly, painfully, until she was standing upright, the old woman clinging to her back like a child. "Hold on, Mama," she gasped. "Hold on tight. We are going to the hospital." And then, with the crowd watching, with phones recording, with voices shouting warnings and curses and encouragement, Amara Okun began to walk. The hospital rose before her like a fortress. A massive concrete building with small windows and a large sign that read General Hospital in faded letters. Amara had never been so grateful to see anything in her entire life. Her legs were shaking so badly she could barely stand. Her vision was blurry at the edges, spots dancing before her eyes. Her arms, wrapped around the old woman's legs, had gone numb, the pain replaced by a terrifying lack of feeling. But she was here. She had made it. She stumbled through the entrance, past a group of people sitting on benches, past a woman holding a crying child, past the smell that hit her like a wave. The sharp, sterile smell of medicine and disinfectant, underlaid with something else, something darker that she did not want to identify. The emergency ward was straight ahead, its doors propped open, and she could see nurses in white uniforms moving quickly, purposefully, their faces set in expressions of focused urgency. Amara's legs gave out just as she reached the doors. She fell to her knees, the old woman's weight shifting dangerously on her back, but she caught herself with one hand on the doorframe and managed to keep them both from collapsing completely. "Please," she cried out, her voice raw, desperate, barely recognizable as her own. "Please, help. This woman was hit by a car. She needs help now." The ward erupted into motion. Nurses appeared from everywhere, drawn by the desperation in her voice. Strong hands took the old woman from her back, lifting her gently, carefully, placing her on a bed that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Amara slumped against the wall, gasping for air, her body suddenly weightless without the burden she had carried for so long. She watched through blurred vision as the nurses worked. They checked the old woman's pulse, her breathing, her pupils. They cut away the torn lace of her boo-boo to examine her injuries. They spoke in quick, efficient phrases that Amara could not quite follow. One nurse ran off, calling for a doctor. Another began cleaning the wound on the old woman's head. A third started in four, the plastic tube snaking toward a bag of clear liquid. The old woman was in good hands. She was going to be okay. She was going to live. Amara let her head fall back against the wall and closed her eyes. For a moment, just a moment, she let herself feel nothing but relief. The weight was gone. The woman was safe. She had done what she set out to do. But then a voice cut through her exhaustion. You brought her in." Amara opened her eyes. A hospital worker stood before her, a middle-aged man in a white coat, a clipboard in his hand. His face was not unkind, but it was businesslike, efficient. He was looking at her with the expression of someone who had seen many things and was surprised by very little. Yes, Amara said, pushing herself to stand. Her legs protested, but she forced them to cooperate. I brought her. She was on the road. An accident. No one else would help. The man nodded, making a note on his clipboard. Are you family? Amara shook her head. No, I do not know her. I found her on the expressway. There was a crowd, but no one would touch her. So I carried her here. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. It was hard to tell. I see, he said. Well, we will need some information from you. But first, we need a deposit to start treatment. Amara's heart, which had just begun to slow to a normal rhythm, lurched again. A deposit? Yes, for the initial tests and scans. 5,000 naira. 5,000 naira. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. 5,000 naira. It was almost all the money she had. The money she had counted this morning. Her fingers trembling with hope. The money for her transport to and from work for the next 2 weeks. The money for her mother's medicine. The money that was supposed to be the beginning of their new life. Amara stared at the man, her mouth open, but no words coming out. I am sorry, the man said, his voice softer now. I know it is difficult, but hospital policy. We cannot start treatment without a deposit. Amara looked past him, down the hallway where they had taken the old woman. She could see the nurses still working, still moving, still fighting to save a life. She thought of the old woman's face, confused and frightened, calling her Adana. She thought of the weight on her back, the warmth of the woman's body, the trust in her voice when she whispered, You have a good heart. And she thought of her mother's face this morning, proud and loving, blessing her as she left. Her mother's cough, deep and painful, that needed medicine she could not afford. Her mother, lying on that thin mattress, waiting for her daughter to come home with good news. If she gave this money, she would have nothing left. No transport, no medicine, no way to get to her job if she even still had a job. She would be walking home, hours through the city, in her ruined clothes, with empty hands and an empty purse. If she did not give the money, the old woman might not get the treatment she needed. The nurses would stop. The tests would not happen. The woman she had carried through the mud, the woman she had saved from the road, might die because of 5,000 naira. Amara closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face. She heard her mother's voice. Let your goodness always guide you. She opened her eyes. Without a word, she reached into her purse and took out all the money, all the crumpled notes she had counted so carefully this morning. She laid them on the counter and counted them again, slowly, deliberately, as if saying goodbye to each one. 4,800 naira. She pushed it toward the hospital worker. This is all I have, she said, her voice steady despite the shaking in her hands. Please, just start the treatment. I will find the rest. I promise. The man looked at the money. Then he looked at Amara. He looked at her ruined blazer, stained with sweat and mud, and who knew what else. He looked at her loose hair, her exhausted face, her red-rimmed eyes, and something in his expression changed. The business-like efficiency softened into something else. Respect, admiration, perhaps even awe. He picked up the money and counted it himself. Then he nodded. We will start, he said. Fill this form. He handed her the clipboard. Amara took it with trembling hands. She looked at the form. Name of patient. She wrote, unknown woman, age. She left it blank. Next of kin. She left it blank. Contact information. She wrote her phone number, the only number she had. She handed the clipboard back. The man looked at it, nodded again. "Someone will call you if there are any updates," he said. "You can go now." Amara turned to leave, and then she saw it. The clock on the wall. Its large face. Its black numbers. Its moving hands. 11 a.m. She was 4 hours late for her first day of work. The realization hit her like a physical blow, driving the air from her lungs, making her stagger. 4 hours. 4 hours late on her first day. There was no excuse they would accept. No explanation they would believe. She had lost it. After 3 years of waiting. After the interviews. After the handshake. After the joy and the tears and the prayers. She had lost it. All because she stopped to help a stranger. The hospital worker was saying something, but she did not hear him. The sounds of the ward faded into a distant hum. The nurses, the patients, the smell of medicine. It all became background noise to the roaring in her ears. She walked out of the hospital. Her feet moved, but she did not feel them. Her legs carried her, but she did not know how. She walked through the doors, past the waiting benches, out into the harsh afternoon sun. The city was still there. The traffic still honked. People still rushed past. The world had not stopped. It had not even paused. It did not know, did not care, that her world had just ended. Amara stood on the hospital steps, her ruined clothes clinging to her body, her empty purse hanging from her hand, her last money gone, her job gone, her hope gone. She looked up at the sky, at the sun that was so bright it hurt her eyes, and she felt nothing, absolutely nothing. The building rose before her. The same building she had looked up at with wonder just yesterday. Global Dynamics Industries. Its glass walls gleamed in the afternoon sun, reflecting the sky, the clouds, the city, reflecting everything except her. She was invisible now, a ghost, a girl who did not belong. Amara stood at the bottom of the steps, looking up at those gleaming walls, and she almost turned around, almost walked away, almost saved herself the humiliation that waited inside. But somewhere, deep in the hollow emptiness that had replaced her heart, a small voice whispered that she had to try. She had to explain. Maybe, just maybe, they would understand. She looked down at herself. Her blazer, once so crisp and beautiful, was ruined, stained with sweat and mud, and who knew what else from the market. Her white blouse was grey, dirty, clinging to her skin. Her skirt was wrinkled, torn at the hem. Her shoes, her poor shoes, were caked with filth, unrecognizable. Her hair hung loose and wild around her face, tangled and damp. She looked like she had been through a war. In a way, she had. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders as much as her exhausted body would allow, and walked up the steps. The revolving doors seemed to mock her as she pushed through them. They turned slowly, deliberately, carrying her into the marble lobby she had admired just yesterday. But today, the lobby felt different. The chandelier seemed too bright, too harsh. The polished floors seemed to gleam with judgment. The air, once so clean and expensive, now felt cold, unwelcoming. And the people in their sharp suits and perfect hair, walking past with their coffee and their briefcases, they stopped. They stared. Their eyes traveled over her ruined clothes, her wild hair, her exhausted face, and they judged. She could see it in their expressions. Disgust, pity, curiosity. The same looks she had seen on the expressway, in the market, everywhere she had gone today. She walked toward the reception desk, her ruined shoes squeaking on the marble floor. The receptionist, the same beautiful woman who had greeted her yesterday, looked up, and her face changed. Shock first, then something else. Disgust. She actually pulled back slightly, as if Amara might be contagious. "Miss Ocone," the receptionist said, her voice cold, professional, but with an edge of something else. Contempt, perhaps. "The HR manager will see you. He has been waiting." She paused, and then added, almost as an afterthought, "He is very angry." Amara nodded. She could not speak. Her voice seemed to have left her somewhere in the market, on the hospital steps, in the long walk home. The receptionist made a call, spoke quietly, then gestured toward the elevators. "5th floor. Someone will meet you." Amara walked to the elevators. She could feel eyes on her back, following her every step. She pressed the button, waited, stepped inside. The doors closed, and for a moment she was alone. She looked at her reflection in the polished metal of the elevator wall. A stranger stared back. A woman with hollow eyes and ruined clothes. A woman who looked nothing like the hopeful girl who had stood in this same elevator just yesterday. The doors opened. A young man in a sharp suit was waiting. He did not smile. He did not speak. He simply turned and walked down the corridor, expecting her to follow. She did. Past offices with glass walls, past workers who looked up from their computers to stare, past whispers she could not quite hear, but knew were about her. The walk seemed endless, a gauntlet of judgment and pity. Finally, they stopped at a door she recognized. Mr. Tunn's office. The young man knocked, opened the door, and gestured for her to enter. Then he was gone, and she was alone with the man who held her fate in his hands. Mr. Tunn sat behind his massive desk, his face a mask of cold fury. He did not stand. He did not offer her a seat. He simply looked at her, his eyes traveling over her ruined appearance with the same disgust she had seen on so many faces today. 4 hours late, he said, his voice low, controlled, but with an edge that cut like a knife. On your first day. 4 hours. Amara's legs were shaking. Her hands were trembling. Tears were already forming in her eyes, burning hot, threatening to fall. "Sir, please," she began, her voice cracking. "Please, let me explain. I know I am late. I know there is no excuse. But please, just listen to what happened." Mr. Tunn said nothing. He simply stared, waiting. "There was an accident," Amara continued, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "On the expressway. An old woman. She was hit by a car. She was lying on the road, bleeding, and no one would help her. Everyone was just watching, recording with their phones. No one would touch her because they were afraid of bad luck." She paused, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face. "I could not just leave her, sir. I could not. I thought of my own mother. What if that was her? What if she was lying there and no one would help? So I got out of the bus. I carried her on my back. I carried her through the market, through the mud, all the way to the hospital. I used my last money to pay for her treatment. That is why I am late. That is why I look like this. Please, sir, I am begging you. I did not mean to be late. I just could not let her die." She stopped, her chest heaving, her face wet with tears, and waited. Waited for understanding. Waited for mercy. Waited for him to see that she had done the right thing. Mr. Tunn looked at her for a long moment. His face was unreadable. Then he leaned forward, his hands flat on the desk. "Your reasons do not matter," he said, each word cold and precise. "The result is the same. You were hired to start at 8 a.m. You arrived after 12 p.m. 4 hours late on your first day shows a complete lack of respect for this company, for this job, and for the opportunity you were given." Amara's heart crumbled. "But sir, please, you were still on probation," he continued, cutting her off as if she had not spoken. Your employment with Global Dynamics Industries is terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. He picked up his phone, pressed a button, and spoke 2 words. Send them. The door opened. 2 large men in security uniforms entered, their faces blank, professional. They stood on either side of the door, waiting. Amara stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to process what was happening. This could not be real. This could not be happening. Not after everything. Not after 3 years. Not after the interviews, the handshake, the joy, the tears. Please, she whispered, her voice so small, so broken. Please, I am begging you. My mother is sick. She needs medicine. This job was our only hope. Please just give me a chance. I will work twice as hard. I will stay late every day. Please. Mr. Tun did not even look at her. He had already turned to his computer, dismissing her as if she were nothing. As if her story meant nothing. As if the old woman she had saved meant nothing. Take her out, he said. The security guards moved. One took her arm, not roughly but firmly. They led her out of the office, out into the corridor, past the glass-walled offices, past the staring workers, past the whispers that were no longer quiet enough to hide. Did you see her? She looks crazy. They said she was late on her first day. 4 hours late. Can you imagine? I heard she was carrying some old woman. Who does that? On her first day? The words followed her like a trail of poison, each one a small death. Amara kept her eyes on the floor, on her ruined shoes, on the marble that seemed to stretch on forever. She could not look up, could not meet their eyes, could not bear to see the judgment, the pity, the contempt, the elevator, the lobby, the revolving doors. Each step carried her closer to the street, closer to the end of her dream. The security guards released her at the door, and she stumbled out into the harsh afternoon light. The glass doors swung shut behind her. She heard the click of them closing, a sound that seemed to seal her fate. She stood on the sidewalk in front of the beautiful building, and she looked up at it one last time. The glass walls still gleamed. The silver letters still spelled out the name. But it was no longer her building. It was no longer her dream. It was just another place where she did not belong. The tears came then, not the quiet tears of sorrow, but the deep, racking sobs of utter devastation. She covered her face with her hands and cried. She cried for the job she had lost. She cried for her mother, waiting at home with hope in her heart. She cried for the old woman, whose name she did not even know. She cried for herself, for her foolish, good heart that had led her to this. People walked past her on the sidewalk. Some glanced, some looked away, some simply ignored her. The city did not care. It never cared. Amara stood there for a long time, crying, until there were no tears left. Then she lowered her hands, wiped her face with the back of her ruined sleeve, and began the long walk home. She had to tell her mother. She had to explain that the dream was over, that the hope was gone, that after 3 years of waiting, after 1 day of joy, it had all been taken away. The familiar streets passed beneath her feet. The small shops, the piles of rubbish, the children playing, the women selling, all the sights and sounds of her neighborhood, unchanged, indifferent to her pain. She reached her building, climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. She stood before the door, her hand on the handle, and she could not move, could not open it, could not face what was inside. But her mother was in there, waiting, worried, probably wondering why her daughter was so late. Amara took a deep breath, the deepest she could manage with the weight crushing her chest, and pushed open the door. The room was dim, the afternoon light fading through the small window. Madame Gloria was sitting up on the mattress, her back against the wall, her eyes fixed on the door. She had been waiting. She had been waiting all day. When she saw Amara, her face changed. The hope that had been there, the anticipation of good news, drained away, replaced by something else. Fear. Because a mother knows. A mother sees her child's face and she knows. Amara? Madame Gloria's voice was soft, uncertain. My daughter, what happened? Amara did not speak. She could not speak. Her legs carried her across the room, and then they gave way, and she collapsed beside the mattress, beside her mother, and buried her face in her mother's lap. The sobs came then, not the quiet tears she had shed on the hospital steps, not the weeping outside the company building. These were deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere so deep inside her she did not know it existed. They shook her whole body, convulsions of grief and pain and devastation that seemed to go on forever. Madame Gloria did not speak. She did not ask questions. She simply placed her hand on her daughter's head and stroked her hair, the same gesture she had used when Amara was a child, when she had scraped her knee or lost a friend or felt the first pains of a broken heart. She stroked and she waited, her own heart breaking into 1,000 pieces with every sob that shook her daughter's body. The minutes passed. The light outside continued to fade. The noises of the city continued, distant, muffled, unimportant. There was only this moment, this mother and this daughter, bound together by love and pain. Finally, slowly, the sobs began to subside. Amara's breathing grew less ragged, her body less tense. But she did not lift her head. She could not. Not yet. Tell me, Madame Gloria said softly. Tell me everything. And Amara did. Her voice was broken, raw, barely above a whisper. But she told the story. The traffic that would not move. The old woman on the road. The crowd watching, recording, doing nothing. The voice in her heart that said, let your goodness guide you. The decision to step out of the bus. The carrying through the muddy market. The hospital. The money. All her money. 4,800 naira. The clock on the wall. 11 a.m. 4 hours late. And then the company, the cold, perfect office. The staring workers. Mr. Tun's face. Hard and unforgiving. His words, each one a knife. Your reasons do not matter. Your job is terminated. The security guards. The walk of shame through the lobby. The glass doors closing behind her. It is gone, Mama, Amara whispered, her face still buried in her mother's lap. The job. The money. Everything. I ruined it all. I used our last money on a stranger. I lost the only chance we had. Your treatment, the medicine you need. It is all gone. Because of me. Because I could not just sit there and do nothing. She lifted her head then, her face wet and swollen, her eyes red and desperate. She looked at her mother, and the words poured out like a confession. I am so sorry, Mama. I am so sorry. I should have stayed in the bus. I should have ignored her. I should have thought of you first. You are my mother. You are the one who matters. And I threw away our only hope for a woman I do not even know. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Please. Madame Gloria looked at her daughter, at this child she had carried in her womb, prayed over through the night, sacrificed for every single day, at this woman who had just given everything she had to save a stranger, and a tear rolled down her own cheek, the first tear she had allowed herself to shed. But it was not a tear of anger. It was not a tear of disappointment. It was a tear of pride. She reached out and took Amara's chin in her hand, lifting her daughter's face so that their eyes met. And when she spoke, her voice was not weak, not broken. It was strong. fierce, the voice of a mother lion protecting her cub. "Listen to me, Amara. Listen to me carefully." Amara stared at her, waiting, trembling. "You saved a life today. Do you understand what that means?" A child of God was lying on that road, bleeding, alone, afraid. Everyone else walked past. Everyone else recorded with their phones. Everyone else worried about bad luck and curses. But not you. You, my daughter, you saw a human being in need, and you did not walk away. Her voice grew stronger, filled with a power that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her frail body. You laid down your own dream to pick up a stranger. You carried her on your back through the mud. You gave her your last money. You did not know her name. You did not know if you would ever see her again. You did not know if anyone would ever thank you. But you did it anyway. Because that is who you are. That is the woman I raised. Amara's tears continued to flow, but something else was happening in her eyes. A flicker of light in the darkness. That is not failure, Amara. Do you hear me? That is not failure. 2 weeks, 14 days, 336 hours. Amara had counted each one, had felt each one pass like a weight dragging her further down into darkness. The days blurred together, each one the same as the last. Wake up, check for jobs. Apply for jobs. Wait for responses that never came. Watch her mother's cough grow worse. Pretend everything was going to be okay. But nothing was okay. The money was gone. All of it. The little they had saved. The little Amara had managed to earn from small errands for neighbors. It was never enough. They ate once a day now. Sometimes less. Madame Gloria's medicine, the cheap kind from the corner chemist that only dulled the pain without treating the cause, was running out. And Amara could do nothing but watch. She sat on the floor in the evening, a borrowed laptop balanced on her knees. A kind neighbor, a young man who worked at an internet cafe, had lent it to her for a few hours. She had promised to return it by nightfall, and she was using every minute to scroll through job listings, to send applications, to hope against hope that something, anything would come through. Her mother lay on the mattress behind her, watching. Madame Gloria said nothing. There was nothing to say. They had talked it through, cried it through, prayed it through. Now there was only waiting, only surviving, only hoping that somehow, impossibly, something would change. Amara clicked on another listing. Administrative assistant. Requirements. 2 years experience. She had none. She clicked on another. Customer service representative. Requirements. Degree and 1 year experience. She had the degree, but the experience? She had applied to so many customer service jobs, had never been called. She clicked on another, and another, and another. The screen blurred before her eyes. She was so tired of hoping, of trying, of failing. She wanted to close the laptop, to lie down, to sleep and never wake up. But she could not. Her mother needed her. She had to keep going. She had to. And then a notification popped up. It appeared in the corner of the screen. A small envelope icon with a number beside it. New email. Amara almost ignored it. It was probably another rejection, another automated response, another, "We regret to inform you." She had received so many of those that the words had lost their meaning. But something made her click. Something made her open her email inbox and look at the new message. And when she saw the sender, her heart stopped. The sender was email protected. The subject line read, Important Invitation, Global Dynamics Industries. Amara stared at the screen. Her hands, resting on the keyboard, began to tremble. Global Dynamics Industries. The company that had fired her. The company that had marched her out of its beautiful building in shame. Why were they emailing her? What could they possibly want? With shaking hands, she opened the email. Dear Miss Amara Okun, it read. You are hereby invited to the office of the Chief Executive Officer, Global Dynamics Industries, tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. Please do not be late. Transportation will be provided to and from your residence. Kindly confirm your attendance by replying to this email. Amara read the words again, and again, and again. They did not change. They did not make sense. The CEO, the head of the entire company, he wanted to see her. Why? To humiliate her further. To make an example of her. To tell her in person how disappointed they were. She turned slowly, her face pale, her eyes wide, and looked at her mother. Mama, she whispered. Mama, you need to see this. Madame Gloria sat up, concern flickering in her eyes. What is it, my daughter? What happened? Amara turned the laptop so her mother could see the screen. She watched as her mother's eyes moved across the words, as her expression changed from confusion to surprise to something else. Something Amara had not seen in 2 weeks. Hope. It is from them, Mama, Amara said, her voice shaking. From Global Dynamics. The CEO wants to see me tomorrow. I do not understand. They fired me. They threw me out. Why would they want me to come back? Madame Gloria looked from the screen to her daughter's face. Her eyes were shining now, bright with a light that had been absent for too long. Read it to me again, she said. Every word. Amara read it again, her voice trembling. Dear Miss Amara Okun, you are hereby invited to the office of the Chief Executive Officer, Global Dynamics Industries, tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. Please do not be late. Transportation will be provided to and from your residence. Kindly confirm your attendance by replying to this email. When she finished, the room was silent. The only sound was the distant noise of the city, filtering through the thin walls. It is a trick, Amara said, shaking her head. It has to be a trick. Maybe they want to humiliate me again. Maybe Mr. Tund is not done with me. Maybe they want to make a public example of what happens to people who are late. I cannot go, Mama. I cannot face them again. Madame Gloria reached out and took her daughter's hand. Her grip, weak from sickness, still carried the strength of a mother's love. Or, she said softly, her voice filled with something Amara had not heard in weeks. Maybe God saw. Amara looked at her, confused. What do you mean? Madame Gloria's eyes were bright, almost feverish with a hope that defied logic. You carried that woman on your back, Amara. You gave your last money to save her life. You lost your job because of your kindness. Do you think God did not see that? Do you think he just watched and did nothing? No, my daughter. God sees. He always sees. And he never forgets. She squeezed Amara's hand tighter. I do not know what this is. I do not know why the CEO wants to see you. But I know one thing. It is not a trick. It is not a humiliation. It is something else. Something good. I can feel it in my bones. Amara wanted to believe. She wanted to hold on to her mother's faith. But the memory of that day, of Mr. Tund's cold face, of the security guards, of the glass doors closing behind her, was too fresh. The pain was too real. Mama, what if it is a trap? What if they just want to yell at me again? I do not think I can bear it. Madame Gloria lifted her daughter's chin, forcing her to meet her eyes. Listen to me, Amara. What do you have to lose? Tell me, what do you have left to lose? Amara thought about it. The job was gone. The money was gone. Her hope was almost gone. What was left? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing, she whispered. I have nothing left to lose. Exactly, Madame Gloria said. Nothing. So if you go, and it is a trap, you lose nothing. You are right back where you started. But if you go and it is something else, something good, then everything could change. She paused, letting the words sink in. You have to go, my daughter. You have to find out. Not for me. Not for us. For yourself. For the girl who carried a stranger on her back. She deserves to know why she is being called. Amara looked at the screen again. At the email that still glowed there. Its words a mystery she could not solve. The CEO. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. You really think I should go? She asked, her voice small. I know you should go, Madame Gloria said firmly. And I will be here, praying for you, waiting for you, believing for you, just like I always have. Amara took a deep breath. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach. But beneath it, something else was stirring. A tiny flicker of something she had not felt in 2 weeks. Hope. Okay, Mama, she said. I will go. Madame Gloria smiled, a smile so bright it seemed to light up the whole room. That is my daughter. Now, reply to that email. Tell them you will be there. And then come here and let us pray. Because tomorrow, something is going to happen. I do not know what, but I know it is going to be big. Amara turned back to the laptop. Her fingers, still trembling, typed a reply. Dear Sir, Madam, thank you for your invitation. I will be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you. Sincerely, Amara Ocone. She pressed send. The email whooshed away into the digital ether, carrying with it her fear, her hope, her uncertainty. Then she closed the laptop, set it aside, and crawled onto the mattress beside her mother. They held hands, bowed their heads and prayed. Madame Gloria prayed with a fervor Amara had not heard in weeks, her weak voice rising and falling with the power of faith. God of miracles, God of second chances, God who sees, we come before you tonight. Tomorrow, my daughter goes to meet with a powerful man. We do not know why. We do not know what awaits her. But you know everything. So we ask you, Lord, go before her. Prepare the way. Open doors. Let whatever happens tomorrow be your will. And if there is blessing waiting for her, let her receive it with open hands. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen, Amara whispered. They lay down together, mother and daughter, holding each other in the darkness. Outside, the city continued its endless noise. But inside that small room, there was peace and hope, a tiny, flickering hope that tomorrow might be different. Amara stood in the doorway, frozen, her mind struggling to process what her eyes were seeing. The old woman, the one she had carried, the one whose weight had pressed into her back for what felt like miles, the one whose confused whispers of Adana had broken her heart. She was here, in this beautiful office, wrapped in a blanket, smiling at Amara like she was the most precious thing in the world. You, Amara whispered, the word escaping her lips before she could stop it. "It's you." Mama Adele rose slowly from her chair, her movements fragile but determined. She ignored the concerned hand the tall man reached out to steady her. She had eyes only for Amara. She walked across the room, one slow step at a time, until she stood directly in front of the girl who had saved her life. And then she took Amara's hands in hers. They were thin hands, papery skin over fragile bones, but their grip was surprisingly strong. Warm. Alive. Amara looked down at them, at the fingers intertwined with her own, and then up at the old woman's face. Tears were streaming down Mama Adele's cheeks, carving paths through the wrinkles, falling onto their joined hands. "My Adana," Mama Adele whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "My angel, you came. You carried me. I have been asking for you every day. Every single day." I told them, "The girl with the good heart. The one who carried me. Find her." And they found you. You came. Amara could not speak. Her own tears were flooding her eyes, spilling down her cheeks, falling onto the old woman's hands. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Only sobs. Deep, shaking sobs of recognition, of relief, of something she could not yet name. The tall man approached. He stood beside his grandmother, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, and looked at Amara with eyes that were suspiciously bright. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion, each word carefully measured, as if he was fighting to maintain control. "Miss Okon," he said, "my name is Richard Adebayo. I am the CEO of this company. And this woman," he looked down at his grandmother with infinite tenderness, "this woman is Mama Adele, my grandmother." Amara's eyes moved from the old woman to the man, trying to understand. His grandmother. The woman she had carried was the CEO's grandmother. Richard continued, his voice growing stronger as he told the story that had brought them to this moment. "My grandmother has dementia," he said. "For the past 3 years, she has lived with us, with round-the-clock caregivers. But 2 weeks ago, something went wrong. Her caregiver was distracted for only a moment. Just a moment. And in that moment, my grandmother wandered out of the house. She walked out into the city, alone, confused, not knowing where she was or how to get back." He paused, swallowing hard. The pain of that day was still fresh in his eyes. "We searched for her. We called the police. We offered rewards. We were frantic, terrified. And then we got a call from the hospital. She had been found. She had been hit by a car. But she was alive." He looked at Amara and something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, wonder, awe. "When we got to the hospital, the doctors told us something strange. They said an old woman had been brought in by a young girl. A girl who had carried her on her back through the market. A girl who had used her own money, her last money, to pay for the deposit so treatment could start immediately. A girl who had filled out a form with only a phone number and the words unknown woman." Amara's tears continued to flow, but she was listening now, hanging on every word. "We asked for the form. We saw the phone number. We tried to call, but the number led to a phone that had been disconnected. We sent people to the address we traced, but you had moved. We could not find you. My grandmother cried every day, asking for Adana, asking for the girl who carried her." He smiled, a small, sad smile. "Adana was my mother. She passed away 10 years ago. In my grandmother's confused mind, she saw you as her daughter. Come back to save her." Mama Adele squeezed Amara's hands, still smiling through her tears. "But we did not give up," Richard continued. "We kept searching. And then, 2 days ago, one of my staff was reviewing something and saw your name. Amara Okon. It was in our HR records. You had been hired and fired on the same day. His voice hardened slightly, a flash of anger crossing his features. I called HR. I demanded the full story. And when I heard that you had been fired for being late because you stopped to save my grandmother, I could not believe it. I was furious. The man who fired you, Mr. Tund, is no longer with this company. I wanted you to know that. Amara's eyes widened. Mr. Tund, fired. Because of her. Richard stepped closer, his voice softening again. Miss Okon, Amara, I have spent the last 2 days learning everything I could about you. I know about your mother. I know about her sickness. I know about the 3 years you spent searching for a job. I know about the money you gave, the last money you had, to save a woman you did not know. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. You did not just save a life, Amara. You saved my world. My grandmother is the only family I have left. She raised me when my parents died. She sacrificed everything for me. And because of you, she is still here. Still with me. Still calling your name every day. Amara looked at Mama Adele, at the love shining in the old woman's eyes, and she felt something crack inside her. The walls she had built over the past 2 weeks, the defenses she had erected against hope, against pain, against the possibility of anything good ever happening again. They crumbled. Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. He held it out to her. Amara, I am not offering you your old job back. That job was beneath you. I am offering you a new position, my personal assistant. Your salary will be 4 times what you are going to earn. You will have a company car, with a driver whenever you need one. You will have unlimited health insurance for you and your mother. Access to the best doctors, the best hospitals. And you will have a company estate, a fully furnished home, for you and your mother to live in, rent-free for as long as you want. Amara stared at the card, at the words she could not quite read through her tears. Her knees began to shake. The room started to spin. If you will have us, Richard said softly. If you will let us thank you in whatever small way we can. You carried my grandmother when she was lost. Now, let us carry you. Amara looked up at him, at his handsome face, at his tear-filled eyes, at the genuine gratitude and kindness radiating from him. She looked at Mama Adele, still holding her hands, still smiling, still whispering, Adana, my Adana. She looked at the card, at the promise of a life she had never dared to dream. And then her knees gave out completely. The world went dark as she fainted, her body finally surrendering to the overwhelming flood of emotion. But she did not hit the floor. Strong arms caught her, lifted her, carried her to a chair. She was aware of distant sounds, Mama Adele's cry of alarm, Richard's urgent voice calling for water, the soft cushion of the chair beneath her. When she opened her eyes, gasping, confused, Richard was kneeling before her, a glass of water in his hand, concern etched on his face. Mama Adele stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, the other pressed to her heart. Amara? Richard said gently. Are you okay? Should I call a doctor? Amara looked at him. She looked at the glass of water. She looked at the old woman, the grandmother, the one she had carried. And she whispered, her voice so small, so fragile, so full of wonder. Is this real? Is any of this real? Richard smiled. It was a beautiful smile, warm and genuine, and there were tears in his eyes when he answered. It is very real, Amara, every word, every promise. You saved my grandmother. You gave us back a piece of our hearts. Whatever you need, whatever your mother needs, it is yours. That is not charity. That is not pity. That is gratitude. That is love. He reached out and took her hand, the same hand that had held Mama Adele's just moments ago. You carried her when she was lost, Now, let us carry you. Amara looked at their joined hands, at the old woman's tear-streaked face, at the man kneeling before her like a knight in a story. And for the first time in 2 weeks, for the first time since she had stepped off that bus and into her destiny, she believed. She believed that God had seen. She believed that her kindness had not been forgotten. She believed that somehow, impossibly, miraculously, everything was going to be okay. The tears came again, that these were different. These were not tears of sorrow or loss or despair. These were tears of joy, of relief, of a hope so overwhelming it threatened to drown her. And in that beautiful office, with the city spread out below them like a promise, Amara Okon began to cry the tears of a woman whose life had just changed forever. The first miracle was the house. It stood in a quiet neighborhood, far from the noise and chaos of the city center. A modern duplex with cream-colored walls and large windows that caught the sun and turned it into gold. A small garden bloomed in front, flowers of every color swaying in the breeze. A paved driveway led to a garage. It looked like something from a magazine, from a movie, from a dream that Amara had never dared to dream. The car pulled up, and Amara helped her mother out. Madame Gloria leaned on her daughter's arm, her eyes wide, her mouth open. She looked at the house, at the garden, at the blue sky above, and she could not speak. "This is it, Mama," Amara said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is our home." They walked up the path together, past the flowers, to the front door. Amara pushed it open, and they stepped inside. The living room was spacious and bright, filled with sunlight that poured through large windows. Soft couches sat on gleaming wooden floors. A television, larger than any they had ever seen, hung on one wall. Art decorated the others. The kitchen was modern, with shiny appliances and more cabinets than they could ever fill. Bedrooms waited upstairs, each with its own bed, its own closet, its own window overlooking the garden. Madame Gloria walked through it all slowly, her hand trailing along the walls, touching the furniture, the countertops, the soft fabric of the curtains. And as she walked, the tears came. They rolled down her cheeks, fell from her chin, but she did not wipe them away. She let them fall, these tears of joy, of disbelief, of gratitude so deep it had no bottom. "My daughter," she whispered, her voice breaking. "My daughter, this. Look at what God has done." Amara came to her and wrapped her arms around her. They stood together in the middle of their beautiful new living room, mother and daughter, and they cried. They cried for the years of struggle, for the hunger and the fear and the hopeless nights. They cried for the prayers that had seemed to go unanswered, for the tears that had seemed to fall forever. And they cried for this moment, this impossible, miraculous moment when everything had changed. "He saw, Mama," Amara whispered. "You said he saw." And he did. He saw. Madame Gloria nodded, holding her daughter tight. "He always sees, my child. He always sees." The second miracle was her mother's health. Richard had kept every promise and more. Within days of that meeting, Madame Gloria was admitted to the best hospital in the city. Not the general hospital with its long lines and overworked staff, but a private hospital, clean and quiet, where doctors had time to listen and nurses smiled when they entered the room. The specialists came. They ran tests, took scans, consulted with each other. They spoke to Amara in gentle voices, explaining everything, answering every question. And then they began treatment. Madame Gloria received medicines she had never been able to afford. Treatment she had only ever dreamed of. Her cough, that deep, rattling cough that had haunted their lives for years, began to ease. The color returned to her face, slowly at first, then more each day. She gained weight. Her eyes grew brighter. She laughed without coughing, walked without pain, sat up without help. Amara visited every day after work, sitting by her mother's bed, holding her hand, watching the miracle unfold. They talked for hours about the past and the future, about everything and nothing. They laughed together, cried together, prayed together. She is responding beautifully, the doctors said. In a few more weeks, she will be stronger than she has been in years. Amara looked at her mother, at the life returning to her face, and she thanked God with every breath. The third miracle was the work. Amara threw herself into her new role with everything she had. She arrived early, left late, learned everything she could about the company, the industry, the people. She was brilliant, just as Richard had known she would be. Her mind was sharp. Her instincts were right. Her dedication was absolute. She dressed impeccably now, in clothes that fit perfectly, and made her feel like the woman she had always known she could be. She walked through the offices with confidence, earning nods of respect from colleagues who had once looked at her with pity. She sat in meetings with executives, contributing ideas that made them sit up and take notice. She was no longer the girl who had been fired. She was someone important, someone valued. And through it all, Richard watched. He watched her in meetings, noting the way she commanded attention without demanding it. He watched her with colleagues, seeing the kindness she showed to everyone, from the newest intern to the oldest executive. He watched her with his grandmother, the way she sat and read to her, the way she held her hand and called her Mama Adele with such love. And slowly, without either of them quite noticing, something began to change between them. The professional admiration deepened into something warmer. The friendly conversations stretched later into the evening. The glances held a moment longer than necessary. A friendship was blooming, and beneath it, something more. It was a beautiful day, the kind of day that seems touched by heaven itself. The sun shone warm and golden. A gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers. Family and friends gathered, dressed in their finest, their faces bright with joy. Amara walked down the aisle in traditional attire, a stunning outfit of rich fabric and intricate beadwork that made her look like a queen. Her mother walked beside her, healthy and strong, glowing with a pride that could not be contained. Together, they approached the altar where Richard waited, handsome in his agbada, his eyes fixed on Amara with a love so deep that made everyone who saw it catch their breath. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with music and prayers and promises. They exchanged vows, spoke words of love and commitment, sealed their union with rings and with kisses. And through it all, in the front row, sat Mama Adele. She was dressed in her finest, wrapped in a shawl of beautiful fabric, her silver hair neatly arranged. Her eyes were clear today, clearer than they had been in weeks. She watched as her grandson married the girl who had carried her, the girl she called Adana, the girl God had sent to save her. And as Amara and Richard were pronounced husband and wife, as the crowd erupted in cheers and applause, Mama Adele clapped her hands and cried. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming joy. She had lived to see this day. She had witnessed the miracle. After the ceremony, as the celebration began, Amara came to her. She knelt beside the old woman's chair and took her hands. Mama Adele, she said softly. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Mama Adele looked at her, at this beautiful girl in her wedding clothes, and she smiled. No, my Adana, she whispered. Thank you. You carried me when I was lost. You gave me back my life. And now you have given my grandson a happiness I never thought he would find. You are the best thing that ever happened to our family. She reached up and touched Amara's face, her papery fingers gentle on her cheek. God sent you, she said. I know he did. He saw your heart that day on the road, and he said, this one deserves everything. And look at you now. Look at what he has given you. Amara leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I love you, Mama Adele. I love you too, my Adana. Forever and always. The celebration continued around them, music and laughter and dancing. Madame Gloria danced with joy, her body strong, her face radiant. Richard watched his wife with eyes full of love, and Mama Adele sat in her chair, clapping along to the music, her heart full to bursting. It was more than a wedding. It was a testimony, a proof that kindness is never wasted, that God sees, that the seeds we sow in tears, we will one day reap in joy. And as the sun set on that beautiful day, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Amara Okom, now Amara Adebayo, looked at her husband, her mother, her new grandmother, and she whispered a prayer of thanks. Thank you, God. Thank you for seeing. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for turning my greatest loss into my greatest gain. The story was not over. There would be more days, more challenges, more joys. But on this day, at this moment, everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. The wedding celebration had finally wound down. The last guests had departed with smiles and well wishes. The music had faded into silence. The laughter and dancing had given way to the peaceful quiet of the evening. Richard's house, now their house, stood calm and serene, its lights glowing warm against the darkness outside. Amara had gone to check on Mama Adele, to make sure the old woman was comfortable after the excitement of the day. She had kissed Richard's cheek and whispered that she would be back soon, leaving him alone in the living room with the soft hum of the night and the weight of the day's joy still fresh in his heart. He was sitting on the couch, loosening his agbada, letting out a long breath of contentment, when he heard footsteps. He looked up to see Madame Gloria entering the room. She moved differently now, he noticed. Where once she had been frail and hesitant, now she walked with strength and purpose. The treatments had worked wonders. The color was back in her face, the light back in her eyes. She was healthy. She was strong. And right now, she had the look of a woman with something important to say. Mama Gloria, Richard said, starting to rise. Please sit down. Can I get you anything? Some tea? Water? Madame Gloria waved a hand. Sit, Richard. Stay where you are. I do not need anything except a few minutes of your time. Richard sat back down, watching her as she lowered herself into the chair across from him. She sat straight, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him suddenly nervous. This was not the grateful mother he had seen earlier, crying tears of joy at her daughter's wedding. This was something else. Something older. Something fiercer. Richard, she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that filled the entire room. Yes, Mama, he replied, his voice respectful, attentive. I want you to look at me. He looked. He met her eyes directly, without flinching, without looking away. He had faced boardrooms full of hostile executives, had negotiated deals with the toughest businessmen in the country, had stood firm against challenges that would have broken lesser men. But something about this woman's gaze made him feel like a small boy again, called before a teacher he could not deceive. Madame Gloria studied him for a long moment, reading his face, his eyes, his soul. When she spoke again, her voice was soft, but each word carried the weight of a mother's love, and a mother's warning. You are a good man, Richard. I want you to know that I believe that. You have given us more than we could ever have dreamed. You saved my life with your doctors and your hospitals. You gave my daughter a home, a job, a future. You have been kind to me, respectful, generous. I will be grateful to you until the day I die. Richard nodded, waiting. He sensed that this was only the beginning. But hear me now, Madame Gloria continued, her voice hardening slightly. And hear me well. That girl you married today? That is my daughter, my only child, the only family I have left in this world. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes never leaving his. Do you know who she is, Richard? Do you really know? Richard opened his mouth to speak, but she held up a hand, stopping him. She is the same girl who carried a stranger on her back through the mud, while people stood around recording with their phones. She is the same girl who gave her last penny, money that was meant for my medicine, to save a life she did not know. She is the same girl who lost her dream job because she stopped to help an old woman lying on the road. Her voice cracked slightly, but she controlled it, pushed forward. That is who you married, Richard. A girl with a heart of gold. A heart so pure, so good, that it led her to sacrifice everything for a stranger. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand what a treasure you have been given? Richard nodded slowly, his own eyes glistening. I do, Mama, I understand. Do you? Madame Gloria's voice was sharp now, cutting through the quiet room. Because I need you to understand something else. If you ever, and I mean ever, make her cry because of something you did, because of some mistake you made, because of some way you failed her, I will not need to come after you. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. God will. The silence that followed was heavy, profound. Richard felt the weight of those words pressing down on him, not with fear, but with a deep sense of responsibility. God has a special place, Madame Gloria continued, her voice softening again, for people who break hearts like hers. He saw what she did that day. He saw her carry that woman. He saw her give her last money. He saw her lose her job. And he blessed her for it. He blessed her with you. With this life. With everything she has now. Do you think he will stand by and watch someone hurt her? Do you think he will ignore it? Richard shook his head. No, Mama. I do not think he will. Neither do I. Madame Gloria leaned back in her chair, the intensity fading slightly from her eyes. So I am not threatening you, Richard. I am not warning you because I think you are a bad man. I am telling you this because I love my daughter, and I need to know that the man she has given her heart to understands what he has. I need to know that you will treasure her the way she deserves to be treasured. Richard rose from the couch and moved to kneel before her chair. He took her hands in his, those hands that had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, raised such a remarkable woman. Mama Gloria, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I hear you. I hear every word. And I want you to know, from the bottom of my heart, that I understand what I have been given. I have watched your daughter for months. I have seen her kindness, her strength, her goodness. I know that she is rare. I know that she is precious. And I promise you, on everything I hold dear, that I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of her. He squeezed her hands gently. I will take care of her, Mama. I will protect her. I will love her with everything I have. Not because I am afraid of what God might do if I fail, but because she deserves nothing less. She deserves everything. And I intend to spend every day of our lives together giving her exactly that. Madame Gloria looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the tears that threatened to spill from his own eyes, and she felt something shift inside her. The last wall of protection she had built around her heart, the wall that had kept her vigilant, watchful, ready to defend her daughter against any threat, began to crumble. She reached out and cupped his face in her hands, the same way she had cupped Amara's face so many times. You are a good man, Richard Adebayo, she whispered. I see that now. I have always seen it. But I needed to say those words. I needed to know that you heard them. A mother's heart does not rest easy, even when her child is happy. But you have given my heart some peace tonight. She pulled him forward and wrapped her arms around him, hugging him tightly. Richard returned the hug, holding this woman who had given him the greatest gift of his life. Take care of her, Madame Gloria whispered into his ear. That is all I ask. Just take care of her. I will, Mama, he promised. Always. Forever. I will. They held each other for a long month, mother and son now, bound by their love for the same remarkable woman. When they finally pulled apart, both were wiping tears from their eyes. Now, Madame Gloria said, her voice returning to its normal warmth, go find your wife. It is your wedding night, and you are sitting here with an old woman. What kind of husband is that? Richard laughed, the tension breaking. The kind who respects his mother-in-law. Respect me in the morning, she said, shooing him with her hands. Tonight, go love your wife. Richard stood, leaned down and kissed her cheek. Good night, Mama. Thank you. For everything. Good night, my son. God bless you. He walked out of the room, leaving Madame Gloria alone in the quiet. She sat for a long moment, staring at the door through which he had disappeared, a smile playing on her lips. Then she looked up at the ceiling, at the sky beyond, at the God who had brought them all to this place. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for my daughter's happiness. Thank you for sending her a good man. And thank you for letting me live to see this day. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 27 years, Madame Gloria Ocon's heart was completely at peace.